All right. We are live. Wait for this to build up a little bit. We got our guest coming on. We're doing a little preview, so we'll wait for some people to join. We are live. Chris, what's going on today?
I'm nervous.
No.
You know what I've realized is, so I just moved like the first load of all my shit to set up the office at the new place. So I was super excited to record from here. And it's not even just that I'm bad with technology. I feel like whenever we try to be actual journalists or whatever you want to say, like we try to take this shit seriously,
right?
The worse it goes, at least for me.
Yeah, that's why doing an actual live show, I think, is probably out. Maybe just a meet and greet type thing, not doing a live show. Seems like a lot would go wrong during that.
Oh no, we would nail that. And we're not allowed to talk about it until I guess the legal team brings it up. I don't know.
Legal team, sweet. All right, then we'll drop it. All right, we're getting started here in a second. Are you in contact with our Mississippi State guest?
Yeah, he has the link sent to him.
Okay. All right, so when he pops in here, we'll get going. We just start recording. What's up?
We haven't started recording?
I thought we were going to do a little bit of an intro before we bring on our guest.
Yeah, whatever.
He's in the waiting room.
Love it. All right. 3, 2, 1, go.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the College Football Uncensored podcast, brought to you by Saturday Down South. I'm your host, Tyler Huck, and with me, as always, my co-host, Chris Marler. Chris, it's preview season.
Preview season, bitch.
SZN, as the kids say.
Yeah, I wrote that too many times. Nobody thought it was cool. It seemed kind of confusing.
We are previewing Mississippi State and South Carolina tonight.
Mm-hmm.
We got some guests. We got one waiting in our green room, our virtual green room. We'll bring him in here in a second.
Yeah.
What excites you about Mississippi State before we get into it?
Everything but Brandon Walker. So no, like they returned 17 starters. You have Will Rogers at quarterback coming into his third year. He's started, every game so far since he's been in college. And that kid is, I think, better than people give him credit for. I think there's like a little bit of a stigma about Mike Leach offenses and quarterbacks that like they're just, they got to put a bunch of numbers, but unless they grow a mustache and wear bandanas and shit like that on like Pac-12 After Dark, they're not going to be very good or likable. But Will Rogers is a good quarterback. I feel like he just doesn't get enough love. I mean, like his numbers, man, even for a Mike Leach offense, like 72% completion last year, like a bazillion yards. And that was just against Auburn. So there's a lot to like about them. I think what interests me the most is, are they able to take like the next step and not just be a 7-5 team like I kind of jokingly say they always are.
I heard an interesting stat today. The podcast that Stanford Steve and Chris the Bear Felica do during football season, they did a preview of SEC win totals. Stat that they threw out there about Mississippi State, I thought that was pretty cool. There's been 3 times that Leach has had a third-year quarterback. Never in those 3 times did they lose or win less than 9 games.
That's fantastic. End the fucking show, to be honest.
Love that.
Yeah, so we did a format here for this these previews, and Tyler has already won up the show. I don't have anything that good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see if our guest does. I'm going to bring him in right now. There he is. I'll fix the background. Don't worry.
Hey, it's a bad hair day, though. So I appreciate you guys. It's been a long day, but I'm glad to be here with you guys. It's a great nightcap.
We appreciate it, man, as always. Honestly, everybody had a bad hair day compared to Stetson Bennett, who just fucking showed up.
Oh.
That was fresh.
You don't like it?
That is true.
What's going on, Jake, man? It's been a while since we've had you on the show. I guess it was last preseason.
Yeah, hey, and I appreciate you guys having me back. Always fun. Hey, like everybody else, just getting ready for football, getting ready. If you guys can't hear me, okay, let me know. But getting ready for football and, kind of counting the days down. And, I do have you a stat that may top that, all joking, but not really.
Love it.
There's one guy who actually has called all of Gardner Minshew's high school games and all of Will Rogers' high school games. Do you know who it is?
It's not Vin Scully.
No.
Oh,
He's on your show right now. I have.
Shut up.
what?
Yeah. Just Brandon High School here in Jackson, Mississippi, right on a suburb. Gardner Minshew was a high school quarterback at Brandon, and his father, Wyatt Rogers, was the offensive coordinator, still is. I started calling Brandon high school football back about 12 years ago. Gardner Minshew was a 10th grader, and I had an opportunity to see both of those young men come through. So, it's been interesting to watch both of them grow up. And I laugh when you talk about, the bandanas and stuff, because that is totally Gardner. Everything you see is totally him. So, when Gardner was playing, Will was sitting in the press box as just a, snotty-nosed little 14-year-old. Had a headset on with his dad. He was taking notes and stuff. So, yeah, oddly, both came through the same high school, both played, and both will have the tutelage of Mike Leach. So, interesting stat there for you.
I didn't know that he was even from Mississippi.
Who's that?
I mean, honestly, both of them, but but Gardner Minshew, I probably just, with how stupid I am, I just assumed he was from California because he wore a bandana once. That's crazy though. That's awesome. Can you also imagine that fucking poor kid that had to follow both of them? Just some kid named Tanner who's got like a noodle arm you probably call his games. I don't mean to shit on him. I don't know. Good luck, kid. Yeah.
I don't think, the guy after him, well, let's see. There was a guy in between Will and Gardner. And after Gardner, there was a guy, the guy after Gardner was not that good. And the guy after Will was not that good. But the guy they've got coming through this year, Brandon's preseason #1 in the state of Mississippi in 6A football. And they got a kid that's not, he's going to be good. He'll likely play college football, but probably not SEC football.
So it doesn't really matter then. So
yeah, there you go. That's right.
They're ranked #1. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, good deal, man. Again, so I have nothing to contribute that's anywhere close to that fun.
Sorry to hijack your show on all that.
No, this is great. I tell you what, like you already knew this before you came on, but it's a little bit of nerves and also a little bit of a lot of unprofessionalism. And I don't know how to plug your stuff because every time I'm on it, I always all I'm hoping to hear is you say something about the Harris Cherokee Casino that we are going to start talking about sports betting in. So introduce yourself fully with your government name, and the radio station and stuff like that, because you do great work, man.
Thank you. Yeah, a government name, Jake Wimberly, of course, program director at ESPN 105.9 The Zone in Jackson and 106.3, a part of Alpha Media. And I also host the afternoon drive 3 to 6, where we just do what you guys do. Talk college football, NFL, have fun, a lot of sports gaming. On Twitter at Jake Wim. A lot of college football analytics. I try to put as much of that as I can on CFB Hourglass. So, I'm a degenerate gamer. Actually, I played 10 totals yesterday at Ameristar. So I went with 10 college football totals yesterday, win totals. I've got a problem, and I recognize that problem.
You're not degenerate. It's like I always say, you're dedicated. So
that's right.
Also, and shout out to you because you are the very first person that had me on radio and actually got our podcast name correct. Instead of just being like, Chris Marler, he's on Saturday. He writes for Saturday Down South and doesn't. I don't at all. So I appreciate that. Tyler, you're the host. Take it away.
I actually went on Jake's radio show last year too. I think I picked UNC to be a sleeper, which was not great.
And we'll have to get you back on there as well. We'll do that.
All right. So Mississippi State finished 7-6 last year. They had some solid wins. Obviously, they won at A&M, at Auburn. They won a game against Kentucky at home. On the flip side, towards the end of the season, some disappointment there. They also, they lost the Egg Bowl. They got obliterated by Texas Tech in the bowl game. Had the disappointing loss at the beginning to Memphis. What's the mood of the fan base going into the season right now?
Cautiously optimistic. I mean, seriously. You still have a portion, and it's a small portion of the Mississippi State fan base that says, hey, look, Mike's got to run the ball more. And I get it. I understand that. But, you hired Mike Leach. You knew what he was going to do. You know that he was coming in to throw the ball. I think cautiously optimistic. I think the fan base would like to see more consistent football. One of the things they were not last year is consistent. I mean, they literally almost lost to Louisiana Tech last year, week 1. They had to come back to win that. They lost the game at Memphis. They had a close loss against LSU. The bowl game against Texas Tech was absolutely terrible. So you go on the road, though, and you come back at Auburn. You go on the road, Texas A&M, and you play well. Egg Bowl, you don't really play well. So a lot of inconsistent football, and let's not leave out the Arkansas game where, you miss 3 kicks, you lose a game in Fayetteville, and then Mike Leach comes back and openly solicits for tryouts on campus for a kicker. So, I think they just want to see more consistent football. And I think that literally is going to be the theme this year, is how consistent can this team be? Because it is year 3 of Mike Leach. Will Rogers is the starting quarterback. He's not going to be nervous or scared in any stadium that he steps in. They've got, the best receiving core that they've had in a long time, probably dates back to Dan Mullen, 2014-15, Dak Prescott. They've got players on defense. They're not Alabama players on defense or Georgia, but it's a solid defense. So consistency for me is going to be, and I think a lot of people, what they're looking for out of this team this year.
So, okay, question about that, because I didn't even realize until you went through it. I forgot about that Louisiana Tech game. I mean, like, what a fucking nightmare. I mean, great comeback. It's like the largest comeback in program history. But, like, I mean, that's how you kick off the entire season. It kind of probably was a little bit of an omen, I guess, for the rest of the year. The 7-6 season, like, you still have, like you said, wins against Kentucky, a win against Texas A&M on the road, by the way, which is tough to do for some teams. Like, my question is, what is the expectation, like big picture wise, right, for Mike Leach? Like, and what is, because I don't think when he was hired, he's never been a guy that's played for a natty or necessarily like won. He's won big games, but like, what is acceptable for the fan base in terms of his success?
For a program like Mississippi State, and I can say this because, I mean, obviously we cover the SEC, but I went to Mississippi State. So, I mean, I was there 1996 to 2000, was there through the Jackie Sherrill era. The one-time State ever won the SEC West, I was actually there. So, I can always hang your hat on that. But, for State, it's know who you are. And, you don't want to be a bottom feeder, but, you got to be realistic with it. I mean, State is not going to compete with Alabama year in and year out, especially with Nick Saban doing what he's doing. You could possibly find yourself in that second spot in the SEC West if everything goes well. So I think for State fans, if you can live in a 7-8 win range, play some good football, and then, of course, you need to beat your rival. Leach is 0-2 against Kiffin right now in the Egg Bowl. I think most fans would be satisfied with that. I mean, most people were satisfied with Dan Mullen, and I would say most everybody was until, the latter part of his tenure at Mississippi State. And that was typically a 7-win, 8-win. They did get to an Orange Bowl. They did get to number 1 once, first time in program history. So I think if Mississippi State fans could see a 7-8 win, 9-win team, somewhere in that range each year, and then, have an opportunity where you get kind of a, say a decade type quarterback like Leach saw at Texas Tech. And then once we saw it or twice at Washington State, and you get to 10 or 11 wins and you actually in the conversation in November, once in a blue moon, I think people would live, be happy with that.
This is the most fucking reasonable answer ever. I love that.
Yeah, it's interesting because if you look at the power rankings for FPI, they have Mississippi State as a top 25 team, but their projected record is either, depending on if you want to round up or round down, 7-5, 6-6. Their number in Vegas, I believe, is 6.5.
That's correct.
So while they're projected to be a top team in the country, they've got the number 2, at least according to Phil Steele, the number 2 hardest schedule in the country. So it's going to be interesting to see how they navigate that.
Yeah, Mike Leach at Mississippi State, this is the most talented team recruiting-wise, if you go by a 3-year metric or a 4-year metric, than he's ever had anywhere he's coached. More so at Texas Tech, more so at Washington State. The problem is everybody else in the SEC West is elite recruiters. I mean, from Alabama, Texas A&M, they're in the top 3. You look at LSU, they're in the top 10. Auburn lives in the top 15. Arkansas, Ole Miss. I mean, so he's with the most talented team that he's ever had, but it just so happens that he's played in the hardest division that he's ever had. So for Mississippi State, there's not a lot of room for error. He's got to have elite quarterback play, and that can help win you a game or two on Saturday that you shouldn't. But then you've got to play error-free football, and you got to be consistent because Mississippi State's going to find themselves in 3 or 4 one-possession ball games. You're going to look up on a Saturday, and State and Arkansas and Starkville's going to be down, inside 10 minutes, and it's going to be a one-possession game. State and Auburn, likely State and Ole Miss, State and Kentucky. So can they win those one-possession ball games? And Mike Leach typically, more years than not, will drop a game that he shouldn't. Last year did it at Memphis. You can go back and look through his schedule at Texas Tech. They did the same thing at Washington State. I believe they lost a ball game one year to Eastern Washington or someone to that effect early.
The best directional Washington school, though.
Yeah, you can't drop week 1 against Memphis, and you can't lose to Arizona on the road out in the desert in week 2. He's got to pick both those up. So I think, though, to kind of circle back, the talent is really good for Mike Leach at Mississippi State. It just so happens that he plays in an elitist, I guess we could say, division in football.
Yeah. I tell you what, you have about like close possession games and wins. I would take a 25, 25 point, not a loss because you guys came back, but like just deficit in the first half and just rip Auburn's heart out every year. I wish you guys would do that, like, just for the next decade or so, because that was fantastic. And on the road too. So going into this year, we heard going into last year at the receiver position, you had to replace, how am I forgetting his name? Number 8. How am I forgetting the running back's name?
Oh, Kylan Hill.
Yeah, Kylan Hill. So you had to replace him. You had a lot coming out in the spring game about Wally at receiver. He kind of goes down with an injury. I don't think he underperformed necessarily last year, but he just wasn't as consistent as I kind of thought. Is he going to take the next step, or who's a guy on that offense that's going to be a household name besides Will Rogers?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think Jaden Wally's a guy that's going to take the next step. He was battling some injuries last year, and there was some points and times where he just was not 100%. Look for him to be completely 100% this year, and to definitely be a factor. You look at a couple other guys on that roster. There's a transfer, and the names escape me because I don't have the roster in front of me, so I do apologize. I'm winging this. There we go. Got a transfer from Northwestern, transfer from Georgia that's going to be there. And then there's 2 or 3 other guys that have seen significant time in that wide receiver room. So, and you got to look at the 2 backs, Jaquavius Marks being one.
Yeah.
He's a guy that can catch the ball out of the backfield. So, I mean, you're looking at a couple running backs that can run and move and wiggle, and they can catch it out of the backfield. We know where Mike Leach's quarterbacks like to check down. And then you look at a guy like the 2 transfers, and then you bring back Jaden Wally. There's some guys that can actually absolutely play on this wide receiver unit. They're going to probably go 8-9 deep in that unit this year.
Love that.
Justin Robinson from UGA, Jordan Mosley from Northwestern. I don't blame you, by the way, for not knowing this. I've been a diehard of my alum for years, my alma mater, I should say. And I can't keep up with the transfer portal and all this kind of, like, the roster movement is insane these days. So it's very hard. I'll be watching practice clips and I'll be like, I don't know who half these guys are right now just based on their numbers. So, hey, we can't fault you for it.
Okay. This will be I'm sorry to be just up on you. This will be the deepest wide receiver room he's had. And there are different body types. There's some guys that are tall, longer, rangier that can get down the field. And then there's some guys that will play in the slot and move around. So it should be his best group since he's been there.
I tell you what, that's a big thing right there that we haven't discussed enough or even seen enough from Leach, because, like, I feel like this is brought up almost ad nauseum still, because no one has heard from KJ Costello since September of 2020. He just went missing. I'm assuming the Clintons did something, but we're not going to get into that tonight. There's been good pass catchers, there's been good receivers, but there hasn't really been, like, from even a body type, standpoint, like, a lot of difference and disparity between those receivers. It seems like a lot of slack guys, to be honest. How's the defense going to be this year? I've heard one take consistently from Georgia fans. I've heard a lot of takes from Georgia fans. The only one I've cared to listen to is that they are a little bit wary and concerned about that trip to Starkville, because they don't make a lot of trips to the SEC West. And I guess 2020, that was JT Daniels' first start. They have a very close game in Athens. Is there any chance that they have like a game where they can knock off a team like Georgia, a team like Bama, or one of the elite teams like that?
I don't think that they have a shot to knock Bama off. To answer that question first. I mean, Bama, I saw something that I think it was Salih on CBS Sports put out, or others maybe as well, as Saban said, hey, look, Bama was in a rebuild year last year. For Bama, for him to say that about last year playing in the national championship game, that spells doom for everybody else. So let's just take Bama off the table. And plus, Mississippi State has not fared well against Alabama. You can go all the way back almost to the beginning of the Nick Saban era. Defensively, though, it should be a really good group. And what's really good mean? Middle of the pack of the SEC. A nice staff, really good staff, good defensive coordinator. They're going to have some guys that can play up front. Now, they're not as deep as Texas A&M or Alabama or Georgia, but they've got some guys that can play. Second level, they got linebackers that can run. The big question for them is the secondary, a unit that gave up they were last in the SEC at, giving up 40 or more yard passes last year. I think they gave up 10 or 11 last year. It was a stupid number. That secondary is going to be rebuilt. They brought in a lot of transfers, got a transfer from Alabama, transfer from West Virginia, transfer from Michigan. And I believe there was another one in there as well. So that secondary is going to be totally rebuilt. They did it through the transfer portal. So the unit will be salty. The unit will be good enough on most days. And, back to your question about a team like Georgia, Yeah, I mean, Starkville's a tough place to play. I mean, it's just about anywhere in the league is a tough place to play, except for Vanderbilt and maybe Missouri, maybe. But I mean, they've done a great job of that atmosphere there. And if Georgia comes in and if State's healthy, if Georgia's offense is sputtering, and Will Rogers is slinging it around, around the yard, so to speak, yeah, I think they could possibly knock off a team like Georgia late in the season. Conversely, I mean, you don't want to turn around and lose a game, against a team like Arizona either. So again, consistency is going to be the theme, but the defense should keep them in most games this year.
Just fucking bring back Jolie Dunn and just make my life, please.
Jolie, absolutely love Jolie Dunn.
I was going to say that if there's one thing that I know Chris loves is salty unit.
That's good. That's good. Honestly, we're about out of time here. So that's a perfect. Jake,
right.
Before we let you go, do you have another question?
Well, I was just going to do over/under pick on the win total of 6.5.
Yeah, and that's I was going to say that too. Same thing.
Same.
But I also want to hear the other 10 bets you made, because now that I'm thinking about it, 10, that's a lot. That is a lot. You don't have to share all of them, but give us the good ones.
All right. So I know I took Mississippi State on the over at 6.5.
Mm-hmm.
I took SMU over their total at 6.5. I really like SMU's team, like the quarterback that they have. I think they've worked the transfer portal very well. Let's see. I took Auburn under the 5.5.
Oh God. I mean, I respect you for it, but I don't know.
Auburn under the 5.5. I took Tennessee over 8.5.
Okay. Wow. I hate everything.
Hey, what's your guys' take on Tennessee real quick? I know you got other things to do here.
No, you're fine. I think so. I thought about this on the last pod. They're the only team, and I've given like shit to Arkansas fans about like we just kind of expect like the close losses are going to become wins, and the wins are just going to stay wins for because everyone's an optimist and like going into the season. I think we've all kind of been like just under the assumption they're going to be like take like a drastic next step in a positive direction, right? But I mean, now that I'm looking at it, they got to go to LSU. Georgia and Bama are still on that schedule. I love Hendon Hooker, but that defense has always been a problem for Heupel. So I'm just going to talk myself in circles for the next couple of months and hope they don't beat Bama. That's my only take.
So a couple others that I took, I've got the tickets across the room over there, but I know I took Utah over 8.5.
Yeah.
Got them one of the Pac-12 and making it to the playoff.
Wow.
Baylor over 8.5 as well. I like them in the Big 12. And then I took UTEP under 5 because, recency bias. They did win 7 last year, but they typically are a 4-win team.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think of a couple others I put in there, but that's the ones that come right off the top of my head. I'll send you all the plays that I did.
Yeah, for sure. Final question. Okay. Better chance of happening this year. Mississippi State makes a New Year's Six Bowl, or Brandon Walker isn't a public asshole on Twitter for the rest of the year.
I know Brandon personally. I haven't talked to him in a long time, but I would say probably Brandon Walker being an asshole all year.
That's fair. That's good. All right, Jake, we appreciate it, dude. Tell everyone where they can find you once again, and I'll look forward to coming on the radio show. Do not bring Tyler on there because he's won up me a bunch this year. So
got it. Hey, on Twitter at Jake Wim, and of course you can always stream the show on the zone1059.com podcast. Just all the podcast platforms. Just search the Afternoon Driver, the Jake Wimbley Show. And I will talk to both of you gentlemen soon. I appreciate you having me on.
Of course, man. Appreciate it.
Man. Appreciate it.
Bye. See ya.
All right,
bye-bye.
All righty.
All right. So, what is your pick for Mississippi State, real quick, before we get?
So I broke down. Let me get us back into our flow here. Are we having a guest for this next step?
I'm gonna be so upset if this doesn't work out. I mean, we're just not gonna do a South Carolina preview.
Okay.
Bottom line, I made that graphic.
Bottom line, just ever or tonight?
No, fuck that. Like the entire university is dead to me if that happens.
No. So I you know how I like to do it. I like to boil it down to wins, losses, and toss-up games.
Yeah.
I think definite wins are Memphis at Arizona, Bowling Green, East Tennessee State. I gave them Auburn at home. I don't know if it's a definite win though.
Okay.
And then their losses, I have Texas A&M at home, at Alabama, Georgia, at Ole Miss. So toss-up games, I think at LSU, they beat them in 2020 at Baton Rouge. It's early in the season, so new coach, try to figure out some stuff on the O-line and QB possibly. That could be a toss-up game where they could win. Arkansas last year was a close game. Arkansas scored late to win. Leach is 0-2 versus Arkansas. The home team is 2-7 against the spread. This game's
Love it.
at home. So that's a toss-up to me. And then at Kentucky, the home team's won that game the last 7 times they've played it.
That's crazy. Look at you. Killed it.
So I think I'm going to go bullish with the Stanford Steve stat that Will Rogers in year 3.
Yeah.
Typically they have good years in the third year of the quarterback. So I'll go over the 6.5.
I'm going to go over.
Plus,
it's criminally low.
Got to go with my man Jake. He took the over.
Yeah, he knows it. He's got a little bit of Jimbo in him because he talks super fast, but he doesn't miss any possible points to make. I feel like every time I talk to him, he's so full of fucking factual information. It's incredible. Someone that is probably not full of factual information. We're gonna get into South Carolina thing. Why don't we, before we start talking about South Carolina, because maybe he follows through. Do
you want to go a little bit more into the stuff we had for Mississippi State?
I feel like you do because you have a bunch of stats, so we could definitely do that. I also wanted to have some, talk about just what's going on in the world of college football today. Mainly just the shit.
Just basically stall to see if our guest shows up.
Yeah. Also that. Sure. I mean, it's fine. It's fine.
Well, maybe we'll bring in a listener. Are there any South Carolina listeners out there that are South Carolina fans?
Good. Listen, so we've decided to do this and start this week. And I think we both knew that especially with the quick turnaround from Monday to Wednesday, and I'm moving and you have an actual life. So trying to coordinate everything in a quick turnaround, maybe this wasn't the right person to go with. But there was no way we were going to do South Carolina and not have fucking Steven Garcia be the guest.
Right.
We did this last year. This is the first team that we covered during this series, and he showed up without a shirt, laying in bed, 3 beers deep. Yeah, and it was one of the best episodes we ever had. It was awesome.
I was hoping he recently got engaged. I was hoping to chat with him about that and tell him about how, life is kind of peaked at this point, I guess, for him. That's what that means. That's the peak.
Oh, that's not good for me. Honestly, the only thing that's ever brought up with Steven Garcia is usually him beating Bama in 2010. So it's nice that we have something else to talk about. It just, especially that it's his engagement. So we just continue to have less and less things in common.
Right. So do we want to wait for him or do we want to go do South Carolina another night?
We're going to do it now. We're waiting. Okay. What do you think?
All right, let's get into it. We'll slowly get into it, see if he shows up.
Before we start with South Carolina, let's get into what happened today and the recent news. And by the way, I did a space this morning that somebody invited me into and just got fucking dragged by Ohio State fans for an hour.
Damn.
I mean, just horrific things they were saying to me. It was awful.
Is Garrett Young? Do you know this? Do you know who Garrett Young?
I do not.
Okay. I think he's a fake South Carolina fan that wants to come on and talk about South Carolina.
We're gonna make a phone call here. This is live radio. This is good. Oh shit, the storing. Why do I keep doing that? I'm gonna call Bearded Tomato. You kind of intro us into what else is going on.
All right.
This is intermission right now, so we can talk about anything. I'm gonna answer some questions.
All right. In the chat, if Steven Garcia shows up, you guys start putting some questions for him in the chat.
Yeah, why? What are you doing right now?
What do I owe the pleasure to? I'm just sitting inside a tin roof. What's up?
Steven Garcia has stood us up for our live interview and podcast for the South Carolina preview. So I was going to see if you want to jump on, but
I mean, I can. How much time do I have?
You have roughly 30 seconds.
My phone or no?
Yeah, you can do it on your phone. Should we bring in Bearded Tomato?
Send him the link. So he can actually join from his phone.
I'm sending you the link.
All right, send me a link. All right, there.
I'm a fucking clutch player here.
My man is dedicated to the craft, and I got to give him huge props for that.
Stop, dude. Also, just celebrate 100 days sober.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. My dad's celebrating 30 years sober tomorrow, I'm assuming. I mean, he's still got that going on, but let's see here.
All right, guys. Well, we're getting a new guest in. We're going to be previewing South Carolina. Obviously, Yeah, we'll just wait for him, I guess. 7-6 a year ago.
I swear to God, if it says he saw my Instagram DM to him and didn't respond, I'm gonna do nothing about it. To be honest, I'll just complain.
This is the last time we have you on this podcast.
What?
That's what you would say to him.
Oh yeah, sure.
It's all right, man. He got engaged. You know, his life is different now, and
yeah, but that's still a slow burn from everything I know about it. Like he's gonna be engaged for years. Like he can't make time for that. He also just got engaged. He's probably on vacation, and I may or may not have texted him about it at like 7:45 a.m. So
this is incredible. All right, Garrett Young, you're not. We found a guest. Sorry, buddy. South Carolina, best directional school in Carolina. Sure, why not? Robert St. Jean, yes. A little bit of a mess here, but it's okay. This is what we do. You know, this is why you do a live performance, really, and it is a performance. I mean, let's be honest. We're fantastic at what we do. But sometimes when you go live, things get a little wild. Chris isn't even here anymore. I mean, he's not here. We got a new Chris that's joining. So he's out here.
Oh,
all right.
What's up, man?
What's going on, man? How you doing tonight?
I'm good. I'm outside of Tin Roof and Cola, man. What's up?
This is fantastic. I appreciate the last minute nature. I don't know where my Chris went. He's gone now.
Just called me too. Okay, so are we live?
Okay, here he is. Here he is. We're live right now.
Unfucking real. We get the tank top. This is
Marler, familiar?
I love it.
The man, the brains behind it, Chris Marler.
You look good. You look better in it though. That's all that matters. How you been?
Well,
I'm not even going to argue that.
Fair enough.
Let's get the man back to his night. We just wanted to get an expert in here. Garcia stood us up. He's engaged
where's
now.
Garcia at? I thought he was the expert.
I mean,
by the way, shameless plug since you brought him up for all those who might be tuned in. Our Monday segment with Garcia is just pure gold. By the way.
Good. So he showed up to that one.
He actually does because I'm paying him, Marler.
Yeah. You know, and one thing too, about Garcia, because I wasn't here when he had a short stint, and I don't know the ins and outs of it, but I think we may still owe him money because he's brought it up to me almost every time we've interacted.
Well, he was very comfortable going on my show and saying that he owes the city of Columbia about $3,000 in parking tickets, and he made it very clear to point out they will never see that money. So hopefully nobody from old down here was listening. That's all I know.
Love it. No, man, we were talking about beforehand, me, you, Tyler, and him did the preview last year.
Yeah.
And it was fucking great. It was, we got so many messages that we got a dozen messages saying how likable Steven Garcia was, and they didn't know it. And then we also had one guy who said, fuck you, Marler, his name was Brennan.
He's such a pro. I mean, he literally sat there on the Monday, again, this Monday, and was just he was because of course you can't help but talk about his suspensions because there were 27 of them. But I mean, he was just he's dude, I didn't do anything that bad. He was I was just living like a college dude. And I was but you were a college dude that was also the starting quarterback at an SEC school. That's the only thing. So, because he's right. It's not we literally told the story about pulling the fire extinguisher thing. And it's that was just stupid. That wasn't he didn't hurt anybody or put anybody's life in danger. Idiot.
Hurt me a lot.
So, yeah.
All right, well, let's get into it real quick. 7-6 a year ago. Big wins over Florida and Auburn at home last year. I think there's a lot of excitement. Got the TikToks going. People are jazzed up. Couple first place votes in the preseason SEC media polls. What do you think about that, Chris?
Rayon, I think. I don't know who it was. Hey, no, listen. We need to know who wrote in Vandy as the first. That person needs to come forward.
Yeah, it's Dan Wilkin. It's Dan Wilkin, Brian Harsin, or all of our exes. I don't know. It's a terrible person.
All right, so obviously the offseason was super exciting because Beamer brings in Rattler and Austin Stogner from Oklahoma, two guys he had previous relationship with from his time at Oklahoma, would be my guess. What have you heard about Spencer Rattler, not only on the field, how he's been with through spring and heading into fall camp, but then also just kind of off the field. Because I know he doesn't have like legal issues off the field, but there's been rumors about how, not the best guy, not the nicest guy. And I think a lot of it stems from his high school days, which, people can grow up. So what have you kind of heard about Spencer Rattler thus far?
Well, I mean, first things first, Tyler, on the field, what you hear about Spencer Rattler is just talented, right? The immense arm talent. I mean, there's a reason this guy was a 5-star prospect. And there was a reason about a year ago this time he was thought of as the favorite to win the Heisman Trophy, favorite to be maybe the number 1 draft pick in the NFL draft. And so it's the talent that jumps out. We saw a little bit of that in the spring game, not a ton. They really didn't open things up. Of course, it was a spring game, but just a natural thrower of the football, right? We all hear arm talent all the time, but I mean, he is a
fingertip speed.
Say it again.
Fingertip speed. That's my favorite.
He's got it. He's got it, right? I mean, again, I know what happened a year ago with the situation in Norman. He loses his job, but hey, here's a fun fact: the guy's 15-0 as a starter. So when he does start and plays, he plays pretty well, more often than not. Off the field, I mean, listen, everything we've heard from Beamer has been positive about, he's come in, he's been a great teammate, all the guys they've talked to. And I think, I'll say this is like, even if things weren't peachy, what are they going to do? Come out and just talk all offseason about how terrible things have been and how terrible the guy is. I can tell you this, though. I've had interactions with him via social media. We've done a lot of work together with some different causes, if you will. And he's been nothing but great to me. I mean, he's been awesome. He's been friendly. He's been just a cool dude. So, I'm not saying that says everything about him, but, I think what happened last year in Norman, guys, I think that could be one of the best things that ever happened to him. Because, again, you bring up the QB1 documentary, and, we were all shitheads when we were 16. But especially for a guy that, like, your entire life, people tell you how great you are, you walk on water. And, no, I'm sure, Marler, you were just a fantastic human being.
Downhill. I've just been on a downhill ever since.
Not at all. No, I mean, I haven't even watched the documentary, but we've all seen the clips on social media. People use that 15-second segment to say how terrible a human being is. I'm not saying Spencer Rattler's been a great teammate his entire career, but I think more of it comes from the trust in Beamer that he's going to put South Carolina's best interests first, and he's not going to bring in a guy I think that would be some sort of negative to his program. I just don't think he'd bring in a guy like Spencer Rattler if he thought he was going to be a guy that was going to divide the locker room and tear the locker room apart and tear down the culture that he's working so hard to build. I think also, too, you're seeing Beamer kind of go almost out of his way to not like dampen the hype, but not bring unnecessary attention to it. I mean, look at it. He didn't even bring Rattler to media days. And as somebody that creates content around South Carolina, I was bummed. I think we were all bummed from a content perspective. But when you sat back and thought about it, you're like, it makes a lot of sense. This guy's going to get plenty of attention. He's already got enough pressure. Why add anymore? Reward the guys who have been at USC for 3, 4, 5 years, whatever. So, all reports have been good. On field, obviously immensely talented. Off field, all we've heard is he's been a great teammate. He's buying in. And I think last year at this time, he was sort of being anointed Heisman favorite, number 1 pick. I think this year the vibe is he's got a chip on his shoulder and got something to prove. Because he's not even making an all-conference team. And I understand he's playing for South Carolina, who doesn't have the personnel of Oklahoma. But, he's not even getting mentioned. He's not even remotely getting mentioned. So I'm excited to see what I think and what I hope will be a Spencer Rattler with that chip on his shoulder and that edge. And, that should help spell some big things for him. And if it spells big things for him, it will spell big things for South Carolina as well.
What a fucking line. That's good. Yeah, we talked about this. I had to take, and I think I openly said he seemed like an asshole. And I always say this, like, we're a nation of haters. We want people to fail if we don't like them, right? It's how Twitter goes every day. But like Rattler, I remember when we had Danny Cannell on, he voiced it, like, and I was like, oh, this is a very, like, if somebody of that, like, professional magnitude is still gonna like voice that and be that outspoken about it, like I feel like it was like a universal type of opinion. But all he's done since then is just get shit on kind of unfairly. Like all the stuff about like the whole narrative that he lost his job to a freshman, like that's a bad thing. Like and Caleb Williams like is not a talented quarterback. You know what I mean? Like he's a top 10 overall player coming out of that recruiting class. I think it's awesome to see how exciting the fan base is right now. Like you especially. Outside of my horrible grandparents from Anniston, Alabama, the way they reacted when Trump was elected, I've never seen anybody this excited over a transition of power from Muschamp to Bieber. And it's awesome to watch. And I mean that. People are going to get upset. I said Trump.
The Hall of Fame analogy.
For real, like, there is, you're smiling. I mean, you got a 10 now. Like you're just
we're going. That was an incredible ride, my friend. Thank you.
No, I mean, I think, like, not having Rattler at media days, like Beamer didn't need to, because like that dude, all he does is create positive momentum and content and whatever for that university. Like he hasn't fucking missed once since he's been hired.
And Marler, I would say this too, because I agree with you. I feel like a lot of the takes around Rattler are just really lazy, for lack of and it's like you know what's really dangerous and a slippery slope is to try to judge someone from the outside when you just have no clue what's going on behind closed doors. So to try to make those assumptions and say, especially like right now, like, oh, well, Spencer Rattler's not going to succeed because he's a bad person. Like, that's a pretty bold claim to make about somebody that you don't even have any clue about them. Like people can change, they can evolve, they can grow. A lot of maturation happens between like 18 and 21, as we all know. But the point is this, and the bigger point that I think people are missing from the outside, the national people, the rivals of South Carolina, those fans, Gamecock fans like myself are not fired up and excited because we think Rattler's going to win the Heisman or he's going to be first team on SEC, or we're setting these insane expectations. Guys, we're excited because he's just so much better than anybody we had last year.
Not just last year, but ever.
Like basically ever. I mean, since the Shaw days, South Carolina has been struggling to find that guy they can look at on a week-in, week-out basis and say, I look at Rattler, and you guys can tell me this is too bold. I see Rattler as having like the Spurrier effect in this way, that when Spurrier was on the sideline, each and every single week, Carolina could be a 21-point dog. Didn't matter who they were playing. Think back to 2010 Bama. Sorry to bring it up, Marler, but like, didn't matter who they were playing. You felt like because of the HBC, because the old ball coach, we had a shot, right? If he has one of his days, he out schemes the other guy, out coaches him. Hey, who knows? We could pull an upset. Rattler's kind of one of those players where it's like, you know what? We might not be as talented as a Georgia, as an A&M, as a Clemson. We're going on the road to Fayetteville. We're an underdog here and other. But if Rattler just has one of those days, if he's feeling it, if he's clicking, if he's, in the vibe, in the groove, he could lead us to an unexpected win, or, maybe help us overachieve or something like that. That's why fans are excited. You know what I mean? So I just feel like it's so lazy to just label, well, he's a bad kid. Like you mentioned, everything that happened last year, Rattler has openly come out and said how toxic of a situation it was. And if you think the situation doesn't matter, look at South Carolina under Muschamp to Beamer. You know what I mean? Like, you could just point to culture last year as to why they were able to, the second half of the season, beat a Florida, beat an Auburn. I mean, I'm not putting it all on that.
Make Carolina great again. Am I right, brother? You know what I mean? Like, that's all he's done.
Right, for sure. So,
no, I think it's spot on, man. I think it's fun to watch all this stuff like kind of unfold, and you see like all the like positive, like I said, positive momentum that he's got going for the program.
I have to throw this out there for you guys. Speaking of how porous the quarterback position was last year, South Carolina, Satterfield brought this up. I couldn't believe it when I heard it. Gamecocks had 9 different players throw a pass last year. 9
in 1 year, and one of them was Zeb,
and they played 7 games.
I tell you what, the fact that like the excitement isn't even just from the significant like increase in talent at quarterback, but you don't cheer for people named Zeb. Like the only people that you cheer for that are named Zeb are like those dudes that like rip apart phone books and like the church, like the song team, power team.
He still didn't break your whole like the whitest quarterback or whatever, because Spencer's still a pretty white name. So
that's right.
Rattler's not even white. That's the crazy part.
My biggest, it's not concern, but my biggest, I think, thing that I'm excited about besides Spencer Rattler this year is this the year that Marshawn Lloyd breaks out? Because he looked real good in the spring game. He was healthy. What's the running game going to look like and take some of the pressure off him?
I think a lot of the questions with the running game do center around Marshawn Lloyd. Like a lot of like what the answers will just come from, is he back or even remotely close to back what we thought or what we think he's going to be, right? I mean, like you said, we saw flashes in the spring game. I thought last year maybe we didn't give enough credit to how severe the injury was with his knee, and he just looked a step slow. And I think Marshawn's biggest thing last year, too, listen, we've had him on the show. He's a great kid. He wants to prove to everybody, this is why I was a 5-star. I'm going to live up to the hype. And I feel like every run last year, he was just trying to hit the home run and break a long run and show everybody why he's that dude. And I think so changing the focus for him to, number one, just being 110% healthy, but just being a productive running back play after play instead of, hey, it's okay to hit singles and doubles, right? The homers are going to come. Hit some singles and doubles and be productive in the meantime. I mean, outside of Lloyd, Christian Bill-Smith, the transfer from Wake Forest, who led the Demon Deacons in rushing a year ago, I think he's going to be a really solid option for you. I like him in short down as well, kind of a bigger bodied back. I think Juju McDowell is the most underrated player on the Gamecocks offense. Like, every time he touches the ball, he's getting 10 yards. It's crazy. Like,
he's the one that took over in that East Carolina game, right?
Yes, he's the one that took over on that last drive, and then UNC had a touchdown run. He's like Waterbug. I don't know how his nickname's not Waterbug. That's what he reminds me of. He's just like a waterbug, just kind of dancing through.
I don't know what that means at all, but
Lavoisier Carroll, sort of a mystery coming from Georgia, was playing DB for them last year, but he was ranked as one of the top running backs coming out of high school, coming out of those ranks. But, you got to replace Kevin Harris and Zaquandre White. So the question is just going to be, how do they divvy up the carries? I think they've got the guys at that position to be productive. It's just all about, again, I think, like you said, Marshawn Lloyd, can he step up and be that guy and live up to his 5-star hype? And, I think there's a lot of pressure for him to do so. Again, it's the upside with him is so great. And, I don't want to say there's more pressure on him because of how many stars he had coming out of high school. But, Marler, this ain't Alabama where we're just loading up on 5 stars every year. You get a 5-star at USC, you need to get the most out of them because it's not like 7 or 8 per class. You know what I mean? So it's like when you land one, he needs to pan out. That's at least how I feel. And Lloyd's just one of those guys, man, that it's like, okay, second year coming off the injury, let's see it. And I think early on, man, you got to give him to like Georgia. And if you don't see it through the first couple of weeks, again, there's only one football. There's a lot of guys on our offense that need to touch it. I think you say, hey, we got to give Juju those carries. We got to give Carroll those carries. We got to give somebody else a look because we got to be productive. We just can't wait all year on Marshawn Lloyd to figure it out. You know what I mean? Because that's kind of what they tried to do last year. But I've got my fingers crossed, man. I think a lot of the difference between the Gamecocks having an okay year and a plus year are they rest on the legs of number one, Marshawn Lloyd, for sure.
Yeah.
Yep. We don't want to keep you too much longer, man. What do you think? You look at the schedule for the year. What's the biggest chance for an upset on the schedule?
Well, I've picked the Gamecocks to beat Clemson. So
let's
really
fucking go.
At Clemson.
Do you think it's an upset? I don't know. I mean, no, listen. I dropped my full-on game-by-game predictions, and I made the dramatics, the flair for the dramatics in my actual show, but just talked about at some point streaks have got to end, and South Carolina eventually has got to play Clemson close, right? Well, I'm not picking them to play Clemson close. I'm picking them to win the game. I'll tell you this, and I think there are other opportunities for sure, maybe in A&M, but I'm so mentally shot with A&M because we've just never beat them. You lost to them last year 44-14, and all they did was add the number one class in the country. I mean, you had 11 yards of offense in the third quarter. I don't know. Maybe
that's better than the year before.
Do what?
It's better than the year before.
A&M has been like one of those games where I'd rather just not have watched, honestly.
Yeah.
But the Clemson game, man, I look at this, and I understand it was 30-0 last year. We've heard it endlessly from Clemson fans. I'll just say this. I think for the first time since 2013, Carolina comes into that game with the better quarterback. If the offensive line, if the line of scrimmage for South Carolina can just play an average game, can hold their own, I think the Gamecocks have got a shot in that one. I think like a 24-20 game. I think it's I know it's on the road. If it was at home, I'd hammer it and go throw money on it right now. Carolina's beating Clemson. Like
I would love if that knocks them out of the playoff. Like if they were 11-0, like
do you think 11-0 at that point? Like I look at, and I don't think Clemson's like terrible. The dynasty's falling apart, but maybe I'm wrong for thinking this. I've just had a gut feeling for months now, and I'm not someone, guys, that puts the garnet glasses on and I'm just picking the Gamecocks every year to beat Clemson. Since I started my business in 2017, I've never went on record and picked Carolina to beat Clemson in football because I just didn't think it was going to happen for good reason, right? Carolina's gotten smacked every year. This year, though, I just feel like Clemson's mortal. I do. I know they're elite defensively, but if Carolina with Rattler is just able to, at that point, like sustain some drives, I think they'll have the defense to withstand Clemson offensively. I mean, who the hell's their quarterback? Now, listen, if Clemson finds a quarterback, if this Klubnik dude, this 5-star is the truth, or DJU plays the form they think he can, well, then Clemson's a national title contender, right? That's the only thing they're missing. I think their defense is national title caliber.
For sure.
It's like what we saw last year. I don't see any reason why Carolina can't go toe-to-toe with them, put together some drives. It's an opportunistic night for Clayton White's defense. And then, one thing leads to another. It's a fourth-quarter game, and from that point, it's anybody's ball game. And I could see it being 20-17, and Rattler leads the team down the field. They score a touchdown, win the game 24-20.
So specific. This is good.
Right.
like
And I've had this gut feeling, and I just figured, you know what? It's college football. It's crazy. Yeah. When does it ever play out to chalk? I understand the streak. I understand it's been domination. Carolina's going to beat Clemson at some point. It's only crazy until it happens.
Right.
Last year at this time, if I would have told you South Carolina was going to beat Florida by 20 points, you'd have said I was insane.
Oh, Georgia fans were all over that too, of course.
Right. What happened? And that was the game I looked at last year. It's this is the biggest potential for an upset. It's the Florida game.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't see it going the way it did, but sure enough, it happened. So I'll say this. At minimum, I think Carolina gives Clemson a close game this year because those games haven't even been competitive. I saw an early spread. Clemson's a 16-point favorite. I will gladly take that all day long. And I'll tell you this, guys. If Carolina can't cover the 16 this year, Clemson's streak might get to 15 games. I mean, literally. I just don't they're so in Carolina's head. Forget it. I hate to say it, but
I mean, the biggest concern for Dabo, I feel like everyone keeps bringing up, and Tyler's brought this up too, is that they don't have coordinators. But what we've learned from Dabo is that you don't need coordinators if you have the Lord. So we appreciate you stopping by, dude, and filling in, man. We'll have to get at you soon, and I'm assuming you're taking the over on the wins, right?
We'll have to give Beamer to give one of those Steve Spurrier speeches where he does the whole God smiling on the Gamecocks thing. Hopefully he's smiling on us a little. Hopefully God likes us a little more than he likes Clemson that night. According to Dabo's live, that's why
God in the same preview. We can't post.
Yeah, I'm get a guy on your show and hey, how do you think Clemson football is going to do this year? It's well, I think we're going to win every game because the Lord likes us more than the other guys. Okay, cool, good analysis. Thanks.
All right, we'll get at you soon, man. We appreciate it.
Hey, appreciate you guys, man. Y'all
Thanks,
take
man.
care.
All right, see ya. Look at that. We got somebody on.
We
didn't get into the defense much. I felt bad. He's probably out to dinner with friends, just walking around for 45 minutes talking to us.
That was nice, though.
But, yeah, what do you do at taking on? Because the win total I've got is 6 for them.
All right, so I just feel like they really, really overachieved last year, and I hope they do well. But all right, here's the schedule. Georgia State, that's a win. Arkansas, I'm going to assume it's a loss because it's on the road.
Yep.
Then you have Georgia at home. That is a loss, no matter what all those people on IC were saying. Charlotte, that's a win, unless they're playing basketball and it's against the Hornets, I guess. South Carolina State. So you're talking, they're 3-2 going into Kentucky. They have struggled mightily with Kentucky over the past 7 years, and they got to go on the road. I don't see them winning that game. Right.
Yeah, Kentucky's won the last 4 at Kentucky and 7 of the last 8 at Kentucky.
I'm trying to look up real quick too and see if
they have a bye before A&M, but A&M's also off a bye.
That doesn't A&M is going. They've beaten the shit out of South Carolina the past 2 years.
I have it as an L. But
I mean, I would love to see it, but I don't think that is. So I think at this point, you're talking you're 3-4. You get Mizzou at home. That's pretty much a must win.
Yeah, I think I got a W there.
Vandy, but closing out at Florida, Tennessee. I tell you, one of the wildest things that's happened, and it shows you how quick the turnaround's been. And
I don't share his optimism on the Clemson game, by the way.
Not at all. That was a lot.
It's at Clemson.
I mean, he's right, but
I did too. I'm rooting for him, but I don't know.
I mean, the offensive line was not great last year. Also, do you know that in every single major offensive category, scoring offense, rushing offense, passing offense, total offense, South Carolina ranks 93rd or worse in the country in those 4 categories. Yeah. So
I think it comes down to that Kentucky game, the Florida game, and the Tennessee game. The Kentucky game is gonna be very tough to win. At Florida, they won big last year, 40-17. They beat Florida at home. I'll be interested to see. I look forward to our Florida preview because I think opinions are mixed on Anthony Richardson.
Yeah, for sure.
And then Tennessee at home, that's a big one. South Carolina's got 5 wins in the last 7 against them at home. One of those losses was an OT. Yeah, they've beat Tennessee 5 out of the last 7 times they played in Columbia. But the Vols have won 3 straight against South Carolina, so that's going to be. I think if they're going to go over that 6, they're going to have to win that Tennessee game because I agree. Georgia State, Charlotte, South Carolina State, Missouri, Vandy, Tennessee would push, and then I think you got to win at Florida. I'm going to take at Kentucky as a loss.
Anytime you see, yeah, of course. Anytime you see, like, and again, to be clear, like I will pull for them in every game. Like, love it, love Beamer, all that kind of stuff. But if we're being realistic, I mean, they probably should not have been in the bowl game last year because what I was going to say earlier was one of the wildest assumptions I think of fans that just like become like a foregone conclusion is not only is Carolina going to be so much better going into year 2 because they're obviously going to progress if they were already that good in year 1. That they're just going to beat Florida in a road game that is same
late in the year.
Yeah, like that kicks off your games against then Tennessee and then Clemson. I mean, you have on that schedule, you have at Arkansas for one, and that's probably like your 5th toughest game. You have Georgia, Bama, A&M, and Clemson. Those are 4 teams all ranked in like the top 6.
Yeah,
but it could be. I mean, who knows?
That stretch at Florida, Tennessee, at Clemson, and the year is tough.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, at Florida, I guess. I don't know. I'll be interested to see what Florida is this year. I still think all the recruiting bullshit about Napier, I think he'll end up being very good there.
It's like 9 4-stars this weekend.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you guys for tuning in. I'm actually going to take the over. I do think Rattler probably is a little underhyped at this point as much as he was overhyped last year.
Mm-hmm.
I think he kind of went under the radar a little bit coming into South Carolina, and he is by far, and I'm going to say it now that Garcia didn't show up, by far the best quarterback they've ever had.
He's the only quarterback I'll even recognize from that university. So
I'm going to go ahead and say that he's the difference, and I'm going to take the over. They won 7 last year. Do you think they take a step back with a much better quarterback?
They should have lost to Auburn. They should have. I don't say they should have lost to Florida, but they should have lost to Auburn. I do think they take a step back, and it's not anything because of Beamer not being a great coach or them not having the talent. I think it's strictly because of the fact that like there's only so much room that you can like progress there. I mean, what is that fucking ceiling? If you have 4 teams in the top 6, and we know how bad that they have been. The biggest wins for South Carolina's program in the past 5 years. Besides the Georgia game on the road, like think about this. They beat Georgia, who was ranked number 3 in the country in 2018 or 2019. I think it's 2019. They beat them on the road in that noon game. They went 3-9 or 4-8 and with that win. So it's like even when they've had, what would be like program defining wins, you would think for Muschamp, like no. The other biggest wins they've had have been against Auburn in back-to-back years and bad Auburn teams and against Florida, who went 6-7, and that was the reason Dan Mullen got fired. So like even some of the success they had, I'm not trying to be like negative about it. That's a tough stretch, man. But I gotta be great if they fucking beat Clemson and Georgia.
That would be fantastic. Okay, cool. All right, well, that's gonna be the end of this preview. If you guys in the chat,
I'm hoping it would go too. This is perfect.
If you guys in the chat are wanting to see one team sooner than another, let us know. Otherwise, we'll just pick things randomly. How about that?
No, we need them to be in control and in charge of this because it did not go well when we had to make the decision. So
you should all go shame Steven Garcia on Twitter.
I don't think he's even on Twitter.
Yeah.
I don't think that would end well for any of the listeners because he wouldn't give a shit anyway. But no, for real, let us know what we should do next. And anyway, also, you guys, if you get a chance, check out American Spiritworks and their distillery. They're doing a big event at the end of the month. You guys should all check it out. It'll be a lot of fun.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in. I'm Tyler. He's Chris. 5 stars. Go do it. We'll see you next time.